Good morning. Welcome to Market Day Report. And we kick off things on this final day of the month of March, with two big reports rolling out, a prospective plantings and a grain stocks report. We get both of those 12 o'clock Eastern time. Now, before that, we'll talk with Brian Hoops in just a moment. Let's go to the overnight trade and the corn market lower. December, the new crop down a penny at 441.5. What about the bean trade in the overnight session? It was up 3 1/4 cents, 10.32 1/4. Over to the wheat markets. We'll touch on these new crops contracts. The July 542 down 3/4 of a penny. Hard red down 2 1/4, 563 1/4. And look at December for spring wheat. And that's a tick higher, 628 3/4. December as well for cotton, down 59 at 69.50. Let's bring in Brian Hoops, President, Midwest Market Solutions. All right, Brian, no overnight sales, flash sales, so I guess we can just focus on reports.
Yeah, good morning, Tony. You're right. No flash sales. At least we haven't had any flash cancellations. A lot of times we see that during this time of the year where Brazil's harvest is ongoing. Sometimes we'll just see outright cancellations. So we haven't seen that either, although there has been some that has showed up on the export sales reports. Now, you look at South American weather. Boy, we're getting a little bit dry in parts of the country in Brazil where they're planting that corn crop, that second corn crop. That's 80% of what they grow for corn. And they're getting to the point where they're going to need some moisture. So that's something that I think the trade wants to focus on after we get past today's key reports. Of course, quarterly stocks, planning intentions reports today going to dominate the market focus. But then we go into the month of April, start talking about U.S. planting, South American weather. All this is going to become very important. In the old adage is, it's not what you plant, it's what you can grow. And so we're going to see what we can grow this year in South America, here as well here in the United States. So yeah, no export sales, not really going to influence our trade direction today. I don't think. We're going to be focused on that report, what it has to say, how many acres of corn that we plant and how many less soybean acres we planted compared to a year ago.
All right, that's big for the commodity markets, but we have something else that's brewing over on the equity side. Are you keeping an eye on that as well?
Yeah, I think part of this is what happening with the equities is that we're at the end of the month, we're at the end of the quarter, and we have tariffs starting April the 2nd. That's another thing that the grain market traders are watching, what happens specifically with Canada and Mexico. But we're seeing some new lows being posted overnight in the S&Ps. Now they bounced a little bit into the morning hours, but I think the direction is where do we go after the end of the month here, end of the quarter, and into the tariffs. If those tariffs are enacted, it has the trade really scared, really spooked at this point in time, although that may be kind of just premature speculation on the trade's part.
Yeah, dollar moving a little higher here this morning, and then the 10-year pulling back just a hair or two. All right, Brian, hang on. We'll come back and we'll talk livestock. Market Day Report continues in a moment. Well, fireworks on Friday when it came to cash cattle sales in the South, 209 to 210, and in the North, 213 to 214. But oh, wait. We sold some in Iowa at $222 a hundredweight. Yeah, now, it wasn't a large number, but the fact that we had cash cattle selling for $222 in the North, that's somewhat of a big deal. Dressed at $235 to $245. So that's how we start the week when it comes to livestock. What about live cattle? Well, on Friday, 72 lower on the front month April at 208.82. Just thinking out loud, that might have to come up a bit to get a little closer to where we are with the cash cattle right now. But a dollar higher, or a dollar lower on the October at 199.72, the only contract to lose that two handle. For the feeders, it was lower as well. Front month at 286.92 a hundredweight, off 62, $1.35 lower on the May. And then over to the hogs And we saw April down 32 at 86.70. The May contract 88.47 off 37. Let's bring back in Brian Hoops, Midwest Market Solutions, 222. It wasn't many, but the fact that we logged 222, pretty amazing.
It was, like you said, not many head. I think just very selective head there that got that type of premium. The bulk of the trade is going to be steady money last week and a little bit softer in the Southern Plains, 209 to 210. And that has kind of weakened our futures after new highs were posted early in the session. We came into the week expecting steady to possibly higher cash trade, and by the end of the week, that didn't happen. So it's a little bit of a disappointment to the trade. The futures market certainly dialed in a big rally, and that didn't happen either in that cash market. One of the more impressive things over last week, I thought, was the fact that we killed 52,000 head more than the prior week. That's a lot of cattle to be killing, and yet the cutout values continued to move higher. We were over $7.50 higher in the choice cutouts last week alone. And the fact that those cutouts moved higher when we're increasing slaughter like that bodes well for consumer demand. I know grilling season just around the corner for most people. It doesn't appear that the consumers are backing off of that demand, even at some higher price levels. Now, we may do that at some point in time, but right now we're not seeing that consumer shying away from paying for these higher prices. Hog market probably a little disappointing close on Friday as well. We reacted initially bullish to the quarterly hog and pig report Thursday afternoon, but then we could not sustain those gains and ended up closing lower on the day.
All right, Brian, are we getting to a point, though, where we may have to use gold to buy beef? And I throw gold in there because I know you've been watching the precious metals.
Yeah, some new highs, new all-time highs for gold overnight, and that market continues to push higher. There's still those concerns about inflation. I know a lot of people talking about 3,500 for April gold before this is all said and done.
Yeah, and when we look at the 1 month on this, again, a pretty amazing little run up there since early March, and that's what's happening with gold. Let's touch on silver before we wrap things up here this morning. Mixed trade, but the April moving higher. Brian Hoops is with Midwest Market Solutions. We'll see you back here on Wednesday.